Welcome to The Big Break Show, a podcast where we discuss short-term rentals, entrepreneurship, life, mindset, and everything in between. Here are your hosts, Rafa and Jesse Vasquez.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of The Big Break Show. Today, with my co-host, Mr. Jesse Vasquez. Jesse, please let us know the typical every week. What episode are we on today?
Can you believe
there it is.
Episode 20, number 20. Yeah, man, you know what? I'm pretty excited about today, Rafa, because we have Bailey Kramer, who's relatively pretty new in the short-term rental space, but it just goes to show how fast you can actually scale and grow in this market. He's just started off by literally reading a book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And almost 2 years later, he's actually been able to grow quickly, flipping first, right, Rafa? And then jumping into the short-term rental space and co-hosting.
Yeah, it was nice to bring him on. I wanted to get him on here because he's done so much in the past year after COVID and opening up all these units. He's done a few fix and flips. He talks about the power of networking, which is huge. He talks about the relationships around you, how they can escalate you so fast. And he's moving fast. He's going to do a lot of great things in the space. He's going to be really big in the space, right? What is he? He's going to be at 15 properties by the end of next month, he was saying, or something like that, with the co-hosting and taking over that boutique hotel. So yeah, man, I'm excited to have him on here for everybody who's starting off so they can take this as actionable steps to move forward. So
definitely.
Yeah, man. Speaking of, though, I got to throw this on here. Episode 20, right? It's crazy. Yeah, that's what I wanted, the whistle. So
yeah, can you believe that? 20 episodes already, man.
I just want to say before we get into the show too, to all the listeners and the viewers, we love you guys. Like we do this for you guys. I know I say this all the time, but seriously, like the fact that you guys leave feedback, you guys give us your comments, you guys are always open about what you think of the show, and we love that, right? Keep giving us honest comments and honest feedback to tell us if we're going in the right direction or not. Because if we're going in a direction where it's just me and Jesse talking to each other, then we're not giving any value to any of our listeners. So tell us what you guys want to listen to. Tell us what you guys want us to talk about. Tell us what direction you want this show, this segment to go in, and we can provide that for you, right? Definitely. We have a vast network of people that we can talk in many different avenues of entrepreneurship. We've kept it very short-term rental and real estate related because it's what we like to do the best. But I know a lot of people out there who are doing it big in the art world, right? They're artists who make a lot of great money being artists. I know a lot of business owners, right, who own actual businesses. So if there's anything specific that you guys want to talk about, let us know. Drop a comment below, right? Make sure you like it first or dislike it, whatever you want. It's up to you. Yep. But let us know. With that being said, without further ado, Mr. Bailey Kramer.
What's up, everybody? We have Mr. Bailey Kramer here with us today, and we're talking all about short-term rentals. And we've been on a lot of short-term rental segments lately, Rafa. And Bailey, welcome, man. Where can folks find you? What's your handle?
Yeah, hey guys. Yeah, the Bailey Kramer. You can find me pretty much anywhere on the internet: Instagram, TikTok, Facebook. The Bailey Kramer.
Cool, man. So that's good. So you guys note that. And Bailey, today we're going to be talking about short-term rentals. I know that you have a co-hosting company, as do I, and you have quite a bit of units that you're working on, and some cool hotel stuff that I want to talk to you about. So tell us about where you're from, man. How you got into short-term rentals, and kind of your story from the beginning.
Yeah, for sure. So I feel like a lot of people, I got into short-term rentals on accident. So to take back how I got into real estate, I read Rich Dad, Poor Dad. I was 19 years old. I was a sophomore in college. And that was about 3 months before COVID hit. So I read that book, got all fired up about real estate, and more specifically, multifamily real estate. I was like, oh my God, I need $100 million assets under management. I thought that was like the goal. Then I realized, okay, a lot of people just own like a percentage of $100 million. So it's like, doesn't sound as good as what they're saying, and they're not making as much money as they're saying. So I said, okay, what's just, and that was after about 6 months of me spinning my wheels, trying to get into multifamily deal. Then I finally said, okay, I'm now entering my junior year of college. I need to get the wheels going because I've always had the goal to graduate college being self-sustaining. So just not having to go get a W-2 job. And when I read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, I'm like, real estate is the way to get me there. I was so confident with it. And then I was like, okay, multifamily is not it. What can I do? So fast forward, I partnered up with somebody who had experience with single families. And the way we partnered up is we were networking. We actually met through a Facebook group. I know you guys said you met through Clubhouse. So all about the networking. And he basically said, this was after 6 months of knowing him, but he said, hey, I need help finding off-market deals. I can't find any right now. Market's super hot. After COVID hit, it started to explode. He's like, can you help me with off-market lead generation? And I was a junior in college, and I said, I don't have any experience with it. I'm not a cold caller, but I have a lot of time in my hands. So sure, I'm here to help. Long story short, we started cold calling and texting people for 3 to 4 months before we landed our first deal. First deal was actually a fix and flip. So did the fix and flip. Fast forward, we did 5 more properties together. The last two being short-term rentals. So that's how we got into it. And that's where, after we did the first 2 short-term rentals, that's where my co-hosting business started, because I already had the experience going. A lot of people were asking me, hey, can you manage my property? So that's how that all began. But yeah, that's kind of the quick story.
That's awesome, dude. And how, this was during COVID, you said, or before COVID?
So I registered at Portad like 3 months before COVID. So this was basically this all started basically in COVID.
Sweet, man. Okay. And right now, currently, how many properties do you have under management, and how many do you co-host and own yourself?
So I own 2 properties myself with partners. And then I am managing 7 short-term rentals total. And as you mentioned in the beginning, I'm setting up an 8-unit boutique hotel and another unit for one of the owners that I co-host with already. So that'll actually be 9 more. So I'll be at 15 or 16 units under management, hopefully on pace by the end of this month.
That's awesome, man. So I want to talk about this boutique hotel in a minute, but prior to that, I want to go into how the co-hosting has been, because I don't do any co-hosting. I do all ownership and arbitrage now. Well, all arbitrage now, ownership. So the other way around. Jesse does a lot of co-hosting. He's got a lot of property, luxury vacation rentals and stuff like that. So how do you structure your co-hosting for the listeners that can listen to this and get an idea? Because I always like talking to different people, because they structure everything differently. So how do you structure your co-hosting deals with your owners?
Yeah. So as far as like percentages go, I'm a flat 20% guy. So 20% of the gross. I don't touch the cleaning fee. I let the cleaning fee go straight to the owner, and I always build in margin. So if we're paying our cleaner $150, I'm charging the guest $175 to $200. I'm giving all that to the owner just so that they can have a little bit extra for supplies. It's all really a wash at the end of the day. So 20% of the gross, and my owners are completely hands off, which means I'm completely hands on. So, everything with the property, from guest messaging, maintenance, all that fun stuff, I'm handling it. And then I send them a report at the end of each month, showing them the revenue, the expenses, and my payout.
Gotcha. What kind of management services are you using? Like what the third party company are you using? Are you like just on Airbnb? Like how do you manage multiple properties?
Gotcha. So I use Guesty for pros right now. And that's for the short-term rentals. I'm using Price Labs for pricing, although I'm doing a lot of pricing I'm touching it a lot more manually right now, just because things are just moving at just a weird pace. Like, things are hot, but I always want to have my pulse on it. I love Price Labs, but I don't love everything about it. So I like to get a little bit more hands-on with it for Price Labs. And then for this 8-unit boutique hotel, we're actually trying out a new software called Little Hotelier, which we are basically in the setup process right now. So we're not live with it, but that's what we're going to test out for the hotel aspect.
So, okay, 20% off of the gross. Do your expenses come out of the expenses, like the resupply stuff, come out of your 20%, or does that come from the owner's percentage?
That comes from the owners. And, technically speaking, the amount of margin that I'm getting them between the cleaning fee and what we're actually paying the cleaner, that typically pays for the expenses and then some. But no, all expenses are from the owner.
So do you buy this stuff then? Are you buying the supplies and things, or are you having the owner buy it?
So I purchase it, but using their credit card. So basically the arrangement that I have with my owners is I'm authorized to spend up to $250 for whatever is needed for the property without authorization. Anything above 250, I need to ask them first. But if it's like ordering more hand soap, literally anything under $250, I'm free to charge.
Got you. Yeah, I do it opposite. I handle everything myself, and then you're charging off of gross. I only do off a net. So whatever the net is what I take. And I take 25 to 30% depending on the property. So, and that's Rafa, you're right. Everybody does things so different. Do you have onboarding fees that you charge at all to bring on a new property?
I do, yeah. So and that's interesting. You do the net, but a higher percentage. Interesting. For onboarding fees, if it's standard and the property's already furnished, I'll charge $400. And that's basically just a flat fee for me to get the software set up, the technology in place. If the property needs to be furnished and they want me to manage the furnishing aspect of it, then I charge extra, really just depending on the project itself. So it just depends on how hands-on they want me to be and how big of a project theirs is. Got you.
Yeah, that makes sense because there's so many different things to go in that aspect. So, but yeah, and there's so many property managers now too, man. It's like, you got to people have to find the right owners of these properties, got to find the right fit. And a lot of times, like I charge $2,000 onboarding fees.
Wow.
Like, that's what I charge because we pay for the photos. We put the locks in there. We'll actually put the locks in. We set up everything that property is going to need. If there's design, like we have a contractor for design that'll come in and she'll design the place. And then they got to pay for her to fly in if that's something that's going to happen, plus the fee that she's got going on. So I think now with property management, it's really smart to start moving in the idea of actually taking care of everything in one spot where, you have the design aspect, you have even scouting properties. Rafa, that's something you and I got to talk about eventually sometime, because I think there's a lot of opportunity in that. But there's just a lot of, if you could be a full service company, I think that's where short-term rentals, midterm rentals, that's going. Imagine like being able to grab a property and you get a contract in place for a hospital. You get the styling of that. I mean, dude, that's like, and then you can make a revenue portion of whatever you set up through the next, let's say 3 years, you contract with an owner like, hey, I'm going to get X percentage because I got these contracts in, you're going to pay us X amount. So that's kind of where my brain's going now in this whole property management movement. And we can't even call it property management. We can't. Right. It's co-hosting unless you get licensed and brokered in California. Our rules and regulations here are probably way more strict than you over in Florida. And that's where you're at, right? You're in Florida.
Well, I live in Florida, but my properties are actually in 4 different states.
Oh, cool. Okay.
That was actually my next question is where are your properties and how do you do to deal with like offsite, like management, like boots on the ground and stuff like that is what I wanted to touch on next.
Yeah. So the properties so I have 2 properties up and running right now in Illinois, and it's on a big lake. So on that lake, that's where the 8-unit boutique hotel is going to be up. And then there's actually another property that I'm going to be co-hosting that's literally right next to one that I own. And that one, it's a long story. Basically, the owner bought the property, but the tenant is still in there. So they're just waiting for him to get out and then it's ready to go. It's already furnished. So Illinois, I have 1 in Wisconsin. That one I own as well in a city called Lake Geneva. Then there's going to be 2 in Terre Haute, Indiana, and then 2 in Pinehurst, North Carolina. So those are the 4 different states that I'm in. And then as far as like, how do I manage them, boots on the ground, that kind of thing, really 3 main people is the cleaner, number 1. That's like the most important for me. Then I have a runner, which is someone who's doing all those little odd tasks, running here and there. I've even set up properties. I've never been to the properties in Terre Haute, but I've set up one fully and actually getting ready right now. He's closing on it, and he's closing on it at the end of the month. So that one I'm going to set up completely virtually as well. So I have runners for that, and then handymen when things break.
Yeah, that makes sense. That's cool, man. You have a pretty cool system going for it. And as far as design, are you designing everything yourself, or do you have a designer that goes out there and looks at these things?
No. So, and that was interesting what Jesse said about how he kind of has a package and contracts the design out. That was interesting because I essentially I have designers that I know and that I work with that I basically just refer to the owner, but I don't get involved in any of the design. I'm not a designer, but that's an interesting idea that you were saying, Jesse, is you kind of contract it out. And I'm guessing you get a piece of that.
No, I don't know.
Oh,
Well,
no.
actually, I'm
Okay.
working with Rafa's sister, so
Okay.
she gets it all. But I would like a piece of it.
Right. Okay. I
Um,
was gonna say I don't get a piece of it, but I'm saying if
yeah,
you could find a way to get a piece of it, that'd be nice. But
yeah,
if it's Rafa's sister, then nah, don't worry.
yeah, yeah.
It depends, right? If you make a full package of it, then yeah, you're the one who's putting the system together. Of course, you're gonna make something on top. Maybe even just a referral fee would be like the piece on out of the pie that
Right. Right.
you can recover from that. But yeah, Jesse has a really cool system set up for that whole package thing. I might actually end up doing something with you on that, Jesse, because if we can end up finding properties for people, it's gonna be huge. I'm already looking in a bunch of different markets. So anyway,
Let's talk about his first deal. Let's run numbers. Are you gonna do that? Are you gonna say that? Like what?
actually, I wanted, yeah. So we were going to transition there. I'm glad you brought it up. I wanted to talk about because you grew really fast, right? It's been when did you get your first one exactly? Like a time frame. Let's talk about that first deal that you did, how it was structured, and how you set it up, and then how fast you've grown to today. Like, what's the time frame on all this?
Yeah. So my first property ever, that was the fix and flip. That was in February of 2021. My first Airbnb short-term rental was in about April of 2021. So it's been basically a year. Basically a year since I started with the short-term rental stuff.
Okay, and going back, you said that the first one you fell into short-term rentals because you guys bought it as a flip, but instead you kept it as a short-term rental. Now, do you own that property or do you just co-host it for somebody else?
No, I'm a part owner in that property.
So you're an owner and then you co-host on top of it.
Yeah, the ones that I manage, I just manage it, which is like
Got it.
I don't know if you technically co-host your own properties or you just manage it, but I'm running the show. I'm the manager. Yeah.
Yeah, that's where I was getting at because one of the things that I'm doing is we're gonna start purchasing properties here, but I'm having my arbitrage company arbitrage it from my holding company of that property.
Oh.
So I have
Yeah.
two different sources of income coming from two different off of one property. And then obviously for tax purposes, it's all structured together, right? So I make a spread over here and then I make a spread over here, but my cost is lower. Anyway, that's why I was asking, because if you're doing that off your own property, if you're co-hosting, you're still taking that 20% off the top of the income coming in from that property already. Does that make sense?
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
And then from like I guess from more of a tax legal standpoint, it's my management company. I have two different LLCs for that too.
Sure.
I have my ownership interest and then I have my management interest.
Okay. Well, can we talk about that first deal then? Like, let's go into the details of it. Why
Yeah.
did you guys decide to keep it if it was going to be a flip? And how did you say, hey, let's try short-term rental instead? Was it because you just heard like the shiny new object? Because, everybody's talking about it now. Like, let's talk about
Yeah.
that deal.
Yeah. So basically, to find the previous 4 deals that my partner and I did, it was all cold calling and texting. So they were all single families. We did 2 long-term rentals, 2 flips. When it came to this one, we were just using our cold calling and texting, found this owner.
Bailey, hang on a sec. I want to dive into this because you're just kind of grazing over it. Like, what did you do to do that? Like, for somebody new listening right now, like, let's talk about it in that term. Like, what programs did you use? How did you go about making the calls? Like, what did that look like? So that
For
it's
sure.
really broken down. So you can
For sure.
talk about that.
Absolutely. So before I started doing this, I literally didn't know what any of this stuff was. So I was brand new to it, and it took me a couple months to catch on, but it finally caught on. So basically, what we're doing is we're using a program called PropStream, and we are pulling lists of basically getting data of homeowners in the area, and we want to know there's certain indicators that someone's willing to sell their house, and for us, even at a discount. So some of the big lists we were pulling were for vacant properties. So we'd look up a zip code and find all the vacant properties in that area. We would do the same for properties that had high equity, low equity, different kind of niche lists like that. And essentially what we'd do and what we started doing is we'd pick up our phone. We started with Google Voice. We'd call them and we'd say like, hey, Jesse, I noticed your house on 123 Main Street, was wondering if you're looking to sell the house. And that's kind of the gist of how we started cold calling. Then we realized, okay, it's going to take a lot of time to do this just by hand. And we're like, we didn't like the calling either, because who likes getting rejected over and over again? Definitely not us. Yeah. So some people are built different though, I got to say, just not me. So then we said, okay, how can we reach more people faster and not have the headache of like just calling people, not answering, getting cursed out? So we decided to text people. So we used a program called Launch Control. And essentially what we do is basically the same type of script with the calling. We put their number that we got from PropStream into Launch Control. We send out a message saying, hey, I was driving by your house and noticed your house on 123 Main Street. was that a property you're interested in selling? And we noticed that the simpler we kept our script, the better. Every time we tried to like think really intensely about our script, it never actually worked. It was just like, hey, I noticed your house. Are you interested in selling it? Super nice, super easy and friendly. So that was through launch control. And essentially what we do and what we found is for every 2,000 people that we texted on launch control, we got about 200 to 400 of them to text back. So that's about 10 to 20% to respond to us. Now, in those responses, a lot of them were F you, stop texting me. I don't want to hear from you. So it's not just about the response rate. Out of those 200 or so people, about 20% of them were actually serious. So that's about 40 people texted back and said, yeah, I'm interested, or sure, let's hear you out. So out of those 40 people, we had moved them over to our CRM, which was Podio. And then in Podio, that's when we'd start physically calling them. Hey, just saw you responded to my message and you're interested in selling your property. And then we'd get into the details of it. We'd essentially ask them 4 main questions: why they want to sell, the condition of their property, their the price that they're looking for, and how soon they're looking to close. Those were the kind of the 4 questions we were hitting on. And out of those 40 people, we'd get 1 to 2 deals out of it. So from 2,000, run them through our system, it would land to usually just 1 deal. Before I go on to the next part with the short-term rental, any follow-up questions?
Yeah, actually, a ton. It's cool that you did that. Number one, I know there's a lot of legalities behind text messaging, right? You can't do 1 click to send a mass text message situation, right? My question behind that is, how did you get around that? Is it because of the software?
Yeah, so the software itself has things to make them compliant, and it's always changing. So,
Right.
These software is always changing, but what they do is they don't send it automatically. You actually have to press a button, but they make it so you can literally just like tap super fast, and you can send literally hundreds of messages within a couple of seconds.
Yeah.
And then it also rotates the message. So one message will say hi, then it'll say hey, and then it'll say your house, your home, your dwelling,
Cool.
so it would change it up a lot.
Yeah, I like that. That's pretty cool. I'm gonna have to check that out. Okay, now you got everything coming in. You got the deals coming in. You're getting rejected, which is part of the business. What made you go? I want to get to the mindset of this little piece here before we go, because it's a big thing, right? Even though you send those messages out, you get rejected. You're getting cursed at. People are telling you to F off. Then you decide to pick up the phone. How did you overcome that hurdle? Did you just never even care about it? Was it you're naturally a phone call person? Like, because even to pick up the phone, like that phone's heavy for some people.
Oh yeah. And it was definitely heavy for me. And I'm not a cold caller. I'm not that good at it. And I'm definitely not natural. I guess I'm more naturally bad with it. But what I did that really helps, and especially at the time with COVID going on, is my partner and I would be on a Zoom. So I was in Florida, he was in Illinois, and we'd be on a Zoom together. And this is especially when we were first starting, because I had no experience. He had some car sales experience, so he had something there, but no cold calling for real estate. So we would be on a Zoom together and listen to each other's calls, basically go one at a time, and just help each other, collaborate. Hey, you said this, you could have said this there, and just help each other. So it got a lot easier when I had someone there with me, because I couldn't just say, I need like 10 more minutes to think about it. He was like, all right, pick up your phone and press the button. So I had no choice really. It was really good accountability.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's always big to have somebody to guide you and be like, yo, like, because you don't have a choice. Like, it's not like, for example, me, when I'm hanging out at home, sometimes I know I got to make a few things happen, and I'm like, I can do this later, or nah, I don't really feel like doing it. But when someone's there next to you, you're like, shit, and I got to really show this person that I know what the hell I'm doing, or that I'm accountable. Like I said, I'm gonna do what I got to do, right?
Right.
Or I got to do what I said I'm gonna do. Anyway, that's cool. Okay, really quick, how are you paying for these off-market deals?
So basically how we started was my partner Frank fronted the money for the software we had basically the software, which was launch control, prop stream, and then we use Google Voice, which is free.
Yeah.
So he fronted the money for that. I was in college at the time, so our agreement was basically he'd teach me, then I would take up the legwork on it, So that was kind of the agreement there. And then eventually, when he got tired of paying for it, we started our own little cold calling off market lead company. So we'd basically bring on somebody, basically do our system in their market. And that's when we had money coming in from that, which basically paid for the leads, the software and stuff. And then when I got overwhelmed with it, then we brought in a cold caller to do it. So then we had the money coming from these different people that paid for the VA and then the software as well.
Got you. What does that software cost? Like, what does that look like to run all those, all that stuff a month?
Yeah, launch control is, depending what package, between $300 and $500 a month, give or take. Prop stream is $100 a month just for the access, and then for skip tracing, give or take 12 to 15 cents per lead. So it just depends on what volume you're looking to do it at. But yeah.
Got you. Okay, cool. So that gives us an idea. And I like talking about those like little things because people right now that are listening they're listening to us to like learn something, right? So you're
For
here
sure.
to talk about all these things. So, and relative to these situations, they can pick up what you're saying now and like literally go do those things. So like talking about those numbers. So break down what the actual numbers look like on your first property. And how, first off, we'll talk about the numbers here in a second, but how did you know what area you're going to go into? Was it just random? We're going to go here because I heard it on Bigger Pockets, or was it like you did some market research? Can you tell us a little bit about that? And then let's dive into the numbers.
Yeah. So the area was basically picked because that's where he lives. And he actually had a couple rentals out in that area at the time. So he knew the area. He was super confident. He grew up semi nearby the area and also lived there for the past couple of years. So he was familiar with that area. I grew up in Wisconsin, Milwaukee to be exact. So I was only an hour away from this area. I wasn't familiar with it, to be honest, but it wasn't so foreign to me that it was just across the country. It was, an hour away. So I felt safer about it. We honestly never did deep analysis of population growth or this or that. It was just, he had a couple rentals and, that's where he was continuing to build and that's where he needed help. So I just kind of went to that market. And then as far as the numbers for the deal, did you want me to talk about the first short-term rental deal or the fix and flip?
Let's talk about both. So like the fix and flip, because I've never actually got into fix and flips. I think Rafa's worked on a couple of those, but what do those numbers look like? So break that down, like what you guys paid for it, what the turnaround time was, what the holding costs are, like what that actually looks like. So break that down.
So yeah, and even one quick thing before that, with the cold calling, this is one that I actually found and talked to over the phone. So I called the guy. I said, "Hey, I noticed your property is vacant. Are you interested in selling it?" And he expressed that he has like an air conditioning company or heating company that he owns, and he has another project that he's fixing up. His hands are super tied, and he just really wants his money back. That was like the gist from what I got from it. So I said, okay, let me run the numbers and see what I can do. That's when I called my partner and said, we got a motivated one on the line. So then on that first one, my partner stepped in. We basically did a three-way call because my partner had a little bit more experience. He just was better at talking on the phone in more of a sales manner. So that's how that one came about. And my partner basically just uncovered further the things that I was talking about and got to like the numbers of it. So the numbers, the previous guy bought it for $85,000, 80 or 85. We'll go with 85. I'm not sure between the two. Bought it for 85. He gutted the entire thing and then put in new windows. And that's when we caught him. That's when we called him and he was ready to sell and pretty much just walk away from the property. So he said he'd sell it for us at the same $85,000. But keep in mind that he gutted the place already and he put in new windows, which is thousands of dollars worth of stuff there. So the $85,000 purchase price. My partner, again, he had the experience with rental properties. This is my first one. I had no idea how much things were going to cost. So he went through, and honestly, he didn't really know how much things were going to cost, even though he had experience. I wouldn't say he was a pro at estimating rehab, but he basically went through and said, okay, it's a blank slate. We need floors, we need kitchen, bathroom, we need everything. What is this going to cost? He came up with his number of $35,000, brought out some contractors. It was really closer to $40,000, but we did some of the work ourselves to save on that cost. So ended up being right around $35,000. And where do you get the capital from? That's a big question that I get a lot. So the capital, one thing that I didn't mention is, so I met him through a Facebook group, like some random Facebook group, but we both ended up joining a mastermind group that was geared towards multifamily real estate. Because as I mentioned before, that's what I wanted to get into in the beginning. So this mastermind group that we joined had a bunch of people who, yeah, it was multifamily focused, but people had experience with single family, people had money they were ready to deploy. So when we were building out our system of cold calling and texting, people knew that we were going to have deals on our hands. So we basically prepped everybody that, hey, if we find a deal like this, is this something you're interested in? So when we finally found it, we needed about $130,000, $140,000 cash to do this deal. So we had two people ready to go. One person funded the down payment or the cash purchase of the house, which was at 80 or 85. And then we had another person front the $35,000 worth of rehab and closing costs.
All right. I got a question on that real quick.
Yeah.
How do you get somebody to trust you if this is your first deal? Like, how did you get somebody from a Facebook or a mastermind to be like, Bailey, dude, I'm going to give you 85K? Like, what did that look like?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. So one piece that I can't discount at all is the fact that I had somebody who was older, had some experience that I was partnering with. That was definitely a huge factor. That was number one. But number two, people did actually have a lot of trust and respect for me because I put out there what I was trying to do. I joined this mastermind. Now that's a whole other story of how I got in for free. But this mastermind, it costs $5,000 to join. So everyone that's in the group, if someone joins the group, you look at them and honestly, you instantaneously, obviously you make your judgments about people, but you can't just join. Not everyone can just join. You have to be approved essentially by the person who runs a group. So it was a group of 25 people at the time. So everyone in the group was serious and it was exclusive. So people already had a built-in respect for me just from that alone.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought this up because I was about to say that. It's funny, Jesse, that you asked the question, but when you join a mastermind, it instantly gives you instant credibility because not everybody can join those masterminds, right? There's people that are paying thousands of dollars to be there. And if you're one of those people paying thousands of dollars to be there, it's instant credibility by the other people who are in that group who are willing to go, hey, we can work on something together. We're both in the same group. And you obviously got something going on because you can afford to be at this place, or you're willing to put in the money to learn and to be into this place, right? It's instant credibility with those situations. I'm in a couple of them now just because of that. They're like, oh, dude, it's so expensive. Yeah, but the deals and relationships that are going to come out of this is the reason why. There's no actual measure behind what you're going to get from it. Right. There's no the monetary value behind what you get. It's impossible to calculate because there's no one physical thing that's going to get. Like I'm not paying $5,000 to get, I don't know, a poster board or whatever. You're paying the $5,000 to be in this group, to be able to meet these people, to help you grow and get further where you want to get in those goals. Right. And there, I appreciate you bringing this up too as well. The first part where you're like admitting, hey, I didn't know everything. I just wanted to get going. The fact that you put yourself out there and you start actually making those calls without knowing what the heck's going to happen, you just started, right? And when you get that traction going, it's like the universe literally throws what you need at you, right? You're like, hey, I got somebody on the line who's ready to go. So your partner's like, okay, I'll come in and be the closer. He was already know what he's doing immediately, right? And then you're like, okay, crap. Well, now they're willing to sell to us. What happens now? And you instantly have to go out and get that. There's no like, well, we got the deal, but we're not going to be able to do the deal because we have no money. No, dude, you just put in a month worth of work to get that deal. You got yelled at by 1,000 people. Now you have to. There's no if I get the money, I have to get this money. So what do? You start talking to a bunch of other people, right? And literally, look what happened, right? You got the funds from someone else, and there goes your first deal. That's awesome, man. I love that. I appreciate that you brought that up.
Appreciate it.
So, okay, before we transition, Jesse, any other questions on this fix and flip? Because I want to go into this deal about the 8-unit boutique hotel.
Yeah, no, I think I pretty much got it. So what did you guys end up doing? You flipped it, or what was that? Let's kind of go to the end of that because you borrowed the money, and maybe like it real quick, and then we'll jump into the other stuff you got going on.
Yeah, so we got the 120, 130 grand. We fixed and flipped it. Tons of mistakes with contractors. We both, even though he had experience, we both honestly didn't really know what we were doing, but we managed to pull it together many contractors later and then sold it for $175,000. So
That's what you
it was
guys
a
make on
nice. So we made 10 to 15 each on it. So we
Okay.
split it 50-50 as well. Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds like it's going to be about a 35K gain from the purchase and the rehab you put into it.
Yeah, and then there were some holding costs and
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay. It's funny. They're currently rehabbing a duplex out in Milwaukee for me.
Oh,
So maybe I'll contact you. Oh wait, you're in Florida now, right? You're not in
I'm in
Milwaukee
Florida.
anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm going to Milwaukee Friday though.
Oh, cool. Yeah, I'll be there probably next month, but I'll contact you in case you're in the area. We'll catch up. But okay, let's talk about this 8 unit then. Let's go into the details from the beginning of how you guys found it. What made you pick it for this, and what made you go, okay, let's turn it into a boutique hotel, or was it already a hotel?
Yeah, so this was an interesting property, and just to be clear, this is one that I'm co-hosting, but the owner that I'm co-hosting it for is actually the guy that my partner that I'm mentioning. So we bought properties together, and then there are some properties that he took on that I didn't want to be part of, and vice versa. So with this property, I was basically involved in the entire thing. I just said no at the end of the day because it was a very unique property, and I couldn't wrap my head around it. It was a 8-unit. It wasn't a motel. It was a just 8-unit month-to-month housing for like super low income people. It just was everyone was on a month-to-month lease if they had a lease at all. Then attached to it was a bar. So it was like a full-on bar with slot machines in it. And then 3 of the units were actually up above the bar. So it was kind of weird. And this isn't in a city. This is actually on the lake that the other short-term rentals in Illinois are on. So it's a super unique deal. I just couldn't wrap my head around owning a bar with Airbnb. It wasn't really my thing to own. I'm not a big bar owner. That's just, I don't know, just not into that really.
I know. I'm thinking like, man, I wish I would have gone there. That's awesome, dude. Okay, Bailey, so let's go into the details of this then. What are they doing to it? How is it being converted? And then essentially, what's going to be your contribution to it?
Yep. So he's basically right now renovating all 8 units. So completely gutting them because they all are terrible condition. Evicting 2 of the tenants because 2 of the tenants won't leave. So he's using the same attorney we use to evict another one of our tenants at the long-term rental at one of our long-term rentals. So they're going to be out redoing the whole inside of the units, making the outside really cool with fire pit, just a cool vibe for that. And then the bar, someone is leasing the bar right now and has 2 more years on the contract. So once that's over, potentially converting that area to more livable space and making that possibly another unit, or potentially just making it a better, cooler bar to a different owner. But with those 8 units, it like I said, it's on a lake. So it's kind of a cool, it's definitely a cool vibe with the bar, I guess, too.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I'm assuming there's other properties around it, right? It's not like the one standalone property at the lake with the bar.
So, no, there's houses next to it, but they're not really nice houses, to be honest. It's a very interesting area in Spring Grove, Illinois, if you guys want to look it up, and the chain of lakes in Illinois. But so there's houses next to it, but no immediate bars and not many short-term rentals next to it.
Is it like this style of place? Is it like, does it attract tourists during summer months? Is it just like?
Yeah, it's basically it's like summer is where we're gonna make a very big majority of our money, and people from Chicago, Milwaukee, Madison, those are kind of our biggest pool of people.
Yeah, I would imagine if there's a lease on the bar and it's been active and operating, there's got to be something, right? It's not just like the local dive bar. It sounds like it's a touristy attraction area. Once it's up and running, I think it's gonna be a pretty cool spot. What's the unit count on this? How does it look?
So 8 units, they each have their own little kitchenette. They all have their bathroom, and they all have between 1 and 3 sleeping beds. I mean, some of them are couches. They all have at least 1 queen bed, and then some have an additional couch. Some have a twin. But yeah.
So they're like studio style suites.
Yeah, they're very, very small.
Gotcha. Okay, cool. Yeah, that's cool. I like those type of properties. And do you know the numbers of what he's putting into it by any chance?
I don't know. I don't know exacts off the top of my head. I'd be lying if I said I did.
No worries. I'm just curious. Okay, so let's talk about your co-hosting side of things then. What are your expectations? What are the numbers you've ran to it, and what do you think you're going to get out of this place?
Yeah, so we are running conservative numbers because this is a brand new concept. There are other smaller cottage style places, and we talked to the owners of that property to get an insight of what they're making. But we're really going in this one. We're really low in our expectations and comparing ourselves to the motels and hoping that it's going to be brand new. It's not going to be a motel. It's going to be a boutique hotel. So we're looking to bring in at least $120,000 of revenue. And that's like, we're aiming super low just so we knew we were, he, at least on his end, especially, he knew he was projected if we could make 120 grand on these 8 units, that would make financial sense for the investment. But again, we've never done this in the winter time for these properties. So we know summer, our occupancy is going to be at least 80%. Last year we were well above that, damn near 100%. So we're very confident with that. Nightly rate, that's another thing for these smaller properties that is tough. Our other properties on the lake rent for $2,000 a night. So this one's going to be closer to $100 a night, to maybe 150, 200. It's really going to be a big testing game for sure. And then seasonality. So there's definitely a lot of unknowns. But another cool thing is with the other property that he has and that I co-host, it's a big spot for weddings. So we're having a couple weddings there this summer. So what we're doing is saying, hey, you have a wedding of 100 people, or we have a property that can sleep 20 to 30 people. You can rent out the entire property.
That's cool.
So that's gonna be another cool spin.
Yeah. You know what, man? Those boutique hotels, like I have so many ideas with those. Like I feel like if I was a part of one of those, Rafa, you probably feel like this too. Like just based off of what we do now, like there's no way that we wouldn't be able to do well with these. Like even if you get like kind of techie and, put in some, lights that turn on or like music that turns on when the guest shows up, like their favorite album playing, Teslas that people can rent out front. Just dude, there's all kinds of stuff you could do.
Yeah, you can make them really unique, man. I know some really good ones out in Austin that you're like, wow, and it was like major value add. Sounds just like this. Okay, really quick, we're getting to the top of the hour here, so we always ask questions, the last 2 questions. But before we get to that segment here, okay, so I want to go over just a few thoughts on this boutique hotel you're setting up. So I'm assuming it's going to be all self check-in.
Yep.
Okay. Now you were saying 120 for the year for all 8, correct? In revenue?
Correct. Combined. Yep.
Okay, that's super conservative, right?
Very conservative. Yeah.
What is that? If you divide that by 12, you're looking at 10,000 or something like that. Yeah, that's cool. I think you'll do a lot more than that if your properties, especially if it's like during the summer months, right? I think you're gonna. Yeah, man, that's cool. That's exciting.
We're confident we're gonna do a lot more than that, but we just decided like if we can, especially on him on the investment side, if he can, because I don't know exactly what he's putting into it. Maybe 70K. I don't know exactly, but we just had the number. We just need to make sure the numbers work at a motel level, but this is going to be far better than a motel. So, we're definitely keeping it safe.
Yeah. Okay. So I just did all the math really quick, and technically for you to make him happy for what and this is awesome because the reason I'm bringing this up is I want to bring up the actual numbers behind it, right? In order for you to meet his needs, it's $42 a day, $41.60 a day per unit to be at 100% occupancy.
Right.
Seems to me like it's a no-brainer, right? Because if you do that, which is really low, you're Bailey, you're obviously experienced at this, the area very well. You're going to probably do 2 or 3x that, like you just said, right? 100, 150 per night. His numbers, in order for him to make sense on that deal, was this, right? The 120 for the year. This is the beauty about short-term rentals is you can underwrite a deal for the long-term market rent, because this is essentially long-term market rent, what he's asking
basically,
for.
Yeah.
And you're going to take that in 3 or 4 exit. I think you're going to kill on this deal, man. This is exciting stuff. We're going to have to talk about this once it's ready and live and operating.
Yeah, for sure.
So, okay, cool. All right, man, let's talk about, we always have a segment right at the end, being that this is the big break show. We want to know, like, what was your big break in business, life, entrepreneurship, your real estate journey, short-term rentals, whatever the case may be, that one thing that because of this one thing you went from here to here, like to that next level, or your entire view of life changed, right? Like what's that big break to help you get to that and be that different person that you are now?
Yeah. Honestly, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, reading that book was the biggest thing because I always had the entrepreneurial mindset. I always knew how I want my life to look. I had literally no idea how I was going to get there. I read Rich Dad Poor Dad and then made all my friends and family read it too because I was so juiced up about it. So I don't think I would have any involvement in real estate or even know anything about real estate if it didn't start with Rich Dad Poor Dad. So I have to give the starting credit to Rich Dad Poor Dad for sure.
Yeah, I love it. I always give that book away to anybody I can.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's definitely that's a solid book, man. And that's how Rafa and I started this room, is the big break, is because like I always had an entrepreneurial mindset. I just didn't know how to put it in play. And like short-term rentals are an easy way to get into it. And you start realizing like, shit, I own my own business. Like, what can I do now? So it's easy to get started in this. So I'm glad that you picked that up. So one of our other segments too is learn and apply. So what we talked about today, what's something that's an actionable step that somebody could do that they heard you talk about today? They learned it from you and then apply it. So can you kind of talk about that?
Yeah. So as far as like the prop stream stuff that we talked about in text messaging, that's one solid one.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then, but one thing that's even more important than, in my opinion, than the technicalities of prop stream and that stuff is networking. So very tactical. This is how I grew my network. This is how I even found out about the mastermind that I joined. This is how I met my partner. So a couple different things real quick. Number one, I listened to a bunch of podcasts, but when I listened to them, I didn't just stop there and just take in the information, reach out to every single guest and the host of the podcast to try to network with them. A lot of the time, just like cold calling, they're not going to respond to you, but I got lucky, or, I put it in action. And after doing it a lot of times, I had really good conversations with a lot of high level people that connected me with a lot of good people. So that's number one. Second one, bigger pockets. I made it my thing to message people, 3 different people per day on Bigger Pockets. I scaled that up to 10 people per day on Bigger Pockets. That was in like a 3-month span when I didn't know literally anybody. So I grew my network to literally 0 to hundreds of people in the matter of months, just by reaching out to people on Bigger Pockets, hopping on a quick intro call and getting to know them. And then lastly, social media / Facebook, get involved in Facebook groups, add value and reach out to people on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and literally just start building your network, talking to people. Because what happened to me is I never talked directly to somebody. I talked to them and they said, oh, you should meet so-and-so, or, hey, I'm going to this. You should also check this out, or whatever. It was always like a network effect. So network. And those are the 3 ways that you can start doing it today.
I love it, man. Network is huge. It's your net worth, right? Your network is your net worth. We talk about that all the time. The biggest impact is the people around you and who you hang out with, and the people that are going to make you get better, not help you get better. They're going to make you get better, because when you're around those people that are high level, you have no other choice but to be high level. You know what I mean? So yeah, the network is huge, man. I appreciate you say that as well, because we're constantly doing as much as we can to be around other people. It's why I'm in masterminds. It's why I'm always going to meetups, right? Like Jesse, we just had this meetup this past weekend, which was awesome. Met a lot of really good people.
Yeah, dude Rafa drove freaking like 10 hours just to drive down here and then drive back up for work.
Never doing that again. I'm flying next time. That was terrible. So, okay, Bailey, where can people get a hold of you, man? Like, what do you got going on aside from everything we talked about? Yeah.
Best way is really on socials, Instagram, TikTok. I do have a Facebook group for short-term rentals that I do for free as well. So I'm always giving out a ton of content on social media, and then Facebook group as well for more tactical questions that I can personally answer for you.
What's the note? Like, what's your handle? You might have said it at the very beginning, but if you
it is _Bailey_Kramer.
Got you.
If you just look up Bailey Kramer, as far as I know, there's only one Bailey Kramer in the real estate world right now. So until there's an imposter, it's just me, Bailey Kramer.
Well, I'm starting another Instagram right now, Bailey Kramer 2.
It's gonna be called Bailey Kramer 1, right? Like that's how usually the fake accounts start. It's always the name and then 1 on the side.
Yeah, dude. Awesome, Bailey. We appreciate you being here, man. Everybody listening to this, please like and subscribe. Our page is actually growing. Our YouTube is growing. We're getting way more people watching this. So if you could please like and share. And also on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, if you can rate the program. It doesn't matter if you want to give us a 1 or a 5, but as long as you rate it, it helps us with the algorithm for people to notice us more. I think we have people like Bailey that come on to provide value, teach people what to do. So anybody that you are networking with, shoot this podcast over to them, let them see it, or this YouTube video. let them see it so it can actually help them make some actionable steps. Because today, Bailey, you talked about things that somebody that's brand new starting off can literally do. Like they could buy these things for, $600 and start doing this today. So I appreciate you for being here, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, guys.
Yeah, thank you, brother. Appreciate it.
Take care, bro. Take care, everybody.